The geopolitical landscape surrounding the conflict in Ukraine remains as intricate and fraught as ever, with recent assessments highlighting a stark divergence in strategic outlooks and escalating tensions across multiple fronts. A year after articulating his theory of victory, Russian President Vladimir Putin continues to operate under the assumption that a war of attrition fueled by gradual advances and sustained offensive operations will ultimately secure Moscow's objectives in Ukraine. This unwavering belief, reiterated during the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum (SPIF) on June 19, 2025, posits that Russia holds a strategic advantage across all fronts, advancing daily, however incrementally. Putin claimed the situation has changed since the March 2022 Istanbul negotiations, with current Russian demands being much harsher, threatening a worsening scenario for Ukraine if significant concessions are not made. Kremlin officials, including spokesperson Dmitry Peskov and Kherson occupation head Vladimir Saldo, echoed this sentiment, asserting that time is on Russia's side. However, this theory of victory, as analyzed by the Institute for the Study of War (ISW), is built upon critical assumptions regarding Ukraine's capabilities and the steadfastness of Western support, conditions that the West still possesses the means to alter. While Russian forces are indeed incurring disproportionately heavy manpower losses for marginal tactical gains, Putin's strategy relies on outlasting Ukraine and its allies. The ISW, in its latest assessment, continues to forecast that Russia will encounter significant challenges within its economy and defense industrial base (DIB) in the medium term, potentially impeding its capacity for prolonged warfare. Despite a recent uptick in oil prices following Israeli strikes against Iran, which could temporarily bolster Russian revenue, this hinges on sustained high prices and the absence of further international sanctions on Russian oil. Increased Western military and economic assistance, therefore, remains crucial to maintaining battlefield pressure and exacerbating Russia's economic vulnerabilities, thereby strengthening Ukraine's negotiating position. Concurrently, the Kremlin is intensifying its reflexive control campaign, a sophisticated information operation designed to influence Western decision-making. Putin's recent statements, while still aiming to deter military aid to Ukraine and NATO rearmament, appear to be adapting for different audiences. At SPIF, he dismissed NATO rearmament as no threat to Russia's security and claimed Germany's potential supply of Taurus missiles would not alter the war's course but would inflict serious damage on bilateral relations. This contrasts with previous more aggressive threats, such as supplying long-range weapons to Western adversaries, suggesting a calibrated shift in rhetoric. A German general, Major General Christian Freuding, notably dismissed Putin's Taurus warnings as nonsense, highlighting a growing Western skepticism towards these narratives. This ongoing campaign unfolds against a backdrop of high-stakes crisis talks between the US and UK on Iran and Ukraine, and internal Western debates on maintaining a united front, particularly concerning US President Donald Trump's perceived stance on Russia. A significant hurdle to any potential de-escalation is Putin's explicit refusal to sign a peace agreement with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, whom he repeatedly dismisses as illegitimate. Putin's claims, which misrepresent Ukrainian constitutional law regarding elections under martial law, suggest that Russia would not recognize any agreements signed by the current Ukrainian government. This persistent narrative, amplified during his meeting with international journalists, is seen by analysts as an informational conditioning effort, setting the stage for Russia to renege on any future peace settlement at its convenience. Adding to Russia's complex internal dynamics, officials are visibly struggling to project economic strength amidst mounting signs of a slowdown. At SPIF, Russian Central Bank chairperson Elvira Nabiullina acknowledged that Russia's economy, which experienced high growth for 2 years, had exhausted its free resources, including its workforce production capacity and sovereign wealth fund. The Moscow Times reported a threefold decrease in the liquid assets of Russia's sovereign wealth fund since the full-scale invasion, now at roughly $35.7 billion. Russian Finance Minister Anton Siluanov conceded a cooling economy, while Economic Development Minister Maxim Reshetnikov delivered a more stark warning, stating Russia is on the brink of recession and that strict monetary policy is hindering investment outside the defense industrial base. These public admissions complicate the Kremlin's efforts to promote social optimism, revealing underlying tensions regarding the sustainability of a prolonged war effort. On the battlefield, recent developments include Ukraine and Russia conducting their fifth prisoner of war exchange under the June 2 Istanbul agreements. The reports suggest Russia has been deliberately inflating the number of bodies released in previous killed-in-action exchanges by including Russian soldiers among Ukrainian casualties, undermining agreed-upon confidence-building measures. Meanwhile, an overnight Russian drone barrage on Odesa resulted in 1 fatality and 14 injuries, with residential and civilian infrastructure struck, prompting a war crimes investigation. Militarily, Ukrainian forces have recently advanced in northern Sumy Oblast, while Russian forces have made gains near Kupiansk-Toretsk and Novopavlivka. Ukrainian intelligence has also reported widespread demoralization within the Russian command, with over 45% of Russian armed forces officers and reserve units of the southern military district allegedly avoiding front lines without legal grounds, indicating a crisis that sees officers attempting to evade combat operations. Ukrainian security services have also been active, thwarting a Russian-recruited contract killing in Kyiv and apprehending a serviceman targeting a Neptune missile system. Beyond the immediate conflict, the broader geopolitical ripple effects are evident. The International Atomic Energy Agency (IAEA) has confirmed that the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant cannot resume operations due to critical issues with cooling water and off-site power, underscoring the persistent nuclear safety risks. Ukraine's National Bank reported continued lending by banks despite wartime, driven by energy and defense sectors, but noted economic recovery is constrained by labor shortages. In a separate development, Spain rejected NATO's proposed 5% GDP defense spending target, exposing divisions within the alliance ahead of a crucial summit. These multifaceted developments paint a picture of a conflict far from resolution, where economic strain, strategic miscalculations, and evolving battlefield tactics continue to shape the grim realities and uncertain future of the war. The coming months will undoubtedly test the resilience of all parties involved, as both sides strive to leverage their strengths and exploit their adversaries' weaknesses in a protracted struggle for geopolitical dominance. The night of June 19 to 20, 2025 cast a grim shadow over Ukraine, marked by a massive Russian drone assault that left a trail of destruction and casualties, most notably in the historic port city of Odesa. This latest barrage underscores the escalating intensity and evolving nature of drone warfare, forcing Ukraine to continuously adapt its defense strategies against a persistent aerial threat. In Odesa, the attack, which saw over 10 direct hits, unleashed widespread fires and caused significant civilian harm. The State Emergency Service of Ukraine reported immediate and harrowing consequences. A 4-story residential building became engulfed in flames, leading to partial collapse. Emergency responders worked tirelessly, rescuing 3 individuals and evacuating 6 others. Tragically, 3 firefighters sustained injuries and were hospitalized in stable condition when parts of the burning structure collapsed on them during their valiant efforts. The devastation extended to a 23-story residential high-rise where fires raged across the 17th, 18th, and 19th floors, prompting the evacuation of 600 residents. Rescuers managed to save 3 people, including 2 children, from a fire-blocked apartment. Beyond these major incidents, 5 more residential buildings, 3 cars, a garage, and a gas pipeline were damaged alongside key rail systems and an administrative building, according to updated reports from Ukrainska Pravda. The State Emergency Service swiftly established an invincibility center at the scene of the most heavily damaged building, offering vital support to residents amidst the chaos. While initial reports indicated 13 injuries, including the 3 firefighters, the Office of the Prosecutor General later confirmed a more tragic toll: 1 fatality and 14 wounded of varying severity. Search and rescue operations continued into the morning, with reports suggesting at least 1 person might still be trapped. This concentrated attack on Odesa was but one facet of a broader nationwide assault. Ukraine's Air Force reported that Russia launched a staggering 86 Shahid UAVs and various decoy drones from multiple locations including Kursk, Milarovo, Oryol, Bryansk, Primorsko-Akhtarsk in Russia and Cape Chauda in temporarily occupied Crimea. Ukrainian air defense forces comprising aircraft, anti-aircraft missile units, electronic warfare units, unmanned systems units and mobile fire groups mounted a robust response. Despite the sheer volume of incoming threats, they successfully downed 70 drones across the country's northeast and south. Notably, 34 drones were neutralized by kinetic firepower while an additional 36 disappeared from radar or were suppressed by electronic warfare, highlighting the critical role of non-kinetic countermeasures in modern aerial combat. 8 separate hits were recorded across Ukraine in addition to debris falls at 11 locations. The scale of this drone offensive underscores Russia's continued reliance on unmanned aerial vehicles as a primary weapon for striking Ukrainian cities and infrastructure, aiming to deplete air defense resources and sow terror. However, Ukraine's impressive interception rate, particularly the significant number of drones disrupted by electronic warfare, points to an evolving and increasingly sophisticated counter-drone strategy. This development aligns with recent discussions suggesting Ukraine is finding revolutionary ways to neutralize large drone swarms, especially as conventional ammunition supplies for air defense systems face ongoing challenges. The ability to effectively jam or suppress drones without expending costly missiles offers a more sustainable and economically viable defense, hinting at a technological arms race where innovation is as crucial as firepower. As the conflict grinds on, the skies over Ukraine remain a contested domain, with both sides continually refining their tactics and technologies. The devastating human cost and widespread damage inflicted by these drone attacks serve as a stark reminder of the ongoing humanitarian crisis, while the persistent adaptation and innovation demonstrated by Ukraine's defense forces highlight the ever-changing landscape of modern warfare. The future of this conflict will undoubtedly be shaped by the continued development and deployment of advanced drone and counter-drone technologies, demanding constant vigilance and strategic foresight from all parties involved. The Middle East finds itself once again at a perilous crossroads as escalating tensions between Israel and Iran threaten to ignite a broader regional conflagration, drawing in global powers and reshaping the geopolitical landscape. Against a backdrop of recent missile exchanges and retaliatory strikes, a complex diplomatic dance is unfolding, with Moscow and Beijing presenting a unified front that appears to carry a pointed message for Washington. The immediate crisis intensified significantly following an Iranian missile strike on Friday morning, which impacted the southern Israeli city of Beersheba, damaging buildings and reportedly injuring 7 people. This direct hit prompted swift and decisive retaliation from Israel. The Israel Defense Forces (IDF) confirmed extensive overnight airstrikes with over 60 fighter jets targeting dozens of military objectives in Iran, including critical missile production facilities in the Tehran area. These operations also reportedly led to the killing of an Iranian commander involved in the recent missile attacks and strikes on 3 Iranian missile platforms poised for launch. Earlier, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz had declared that Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei will be held accountable after a hospital in Israel sustained damage in a prior missile strike. However, Israeli President Isaac Herzog later clarified that the elimination of Khamenei was not Israel's primary objective, though he suggested his removal would ultimately benefit the Iranian people. Amidst this fraught environment, Russia has emerged as a vocal and active player, signaling its intent to shape the trajectory of the conflict. On Thursday, Russian President Vladimir Putin suggested that Russia could play a pivotal role in brokering a deal between Iran and Israel, positioning Moscow as a potential mediator. This diplomatic overture was swiftly followed by a stern warning from the Kremlin regarding any attempts at regime change in Tehran. On Friday, Dmitry Peskov, Putin's spokesperson, unequivocally stated that the potential for regime change in Iran was unacceptable and unimaginable. Speaking to Sky News, Peskov cautioned that an assassination of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei would lead to widespread extremism within the country, warning that such an act would open the Pandora's box. He further emphasized the danger of direct participation by other actors in the conflict, a clear reference to the United States asserting it would only lead to another circle of confrontation and escalation of tension in the region. These comments come even as Russia continues its own full-scale invasion of Ukraine, an assault that has fundamentally altered Europe's security architecture. The Kremlin's strong stance and offer of mediation are particularly salient given the unfolding developments in Washington. U.S. President Donald Trump's team indicated on Thursday that he would decide within 2 weeks whether America would join Israel in its military campaign against Tehran. This looming decision from the White House adds a layer of global significance to the regional conflict as it could dramatically expand the scope of hostilities. It is against this backdrop that CNN reported a united front presented by Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin over the Israel-Iran crisis, interpreted as a veiled message to Trump. While the specifics of this joint stance remain to be fully articulated, Russia's public statements align with a broader effort to counter perceived Western unilateralism and assert a multipolar world order. The complexity of the diplomatic landscape is further underscored by the Kremlin's reluctance to predict when a face-to-face meeting between Putin and Trump might occur, suggesting a degree of uncertainty in high-level engagement even as the crisis escalates. The confluence of these events highlights a critical juncture in international relations. Russia's assertive diplomatic posture, encompassing both mediation offers and strong warnings against intervention, reflects its ambition to exert influence in key global flashpoints and challenge the traditional dominance of the United States. Its opposition to regime change in Iran aligns with a broader foreign policy doctrine that prioritizes state sovereignty and stability, even if that stability is maintained by controversial regimes. For China, aligning with Russia on such a critical issue reinforces a growing strategic partnership aimed at counterbalancing American power. The potential for the U.S. to enter the fray directly could solidify this emerging axis, transforming a regional conflict into a significant test of global power dynamics. As the world watches for President Trump's decision on U.S. military support for Israel, the statements from Moscow and Beijing underscore the profound geopolitical implications of the Israel-Iran crisis. The coming weeks will not only determine the immediate fate of the Middle East but also offer crucial insights into the evolving international order as major powers jostle for influence and redraw the lines of global alliances. The delicate balance between de-escalation and a full-blown regional war potentially involving global heavyweights hangs precariously in the balance. The coastal city of Odesa, a UNESCO heritage site, once again found itself under the brutal glare of conflict on June 20, 2025, as a Russian drone attack on a residential building claimed 1 life and injured at least 13 others, including 3 dedicated rescue workers. This latest assault, which saw Ukraine's Air Force intercept 70 of 86 incoming Russian drones, underscores a grim reality. Despite fleeting mentions of peace, the war continues its destructive march, escalating in intensity and human cost. The Odesa tragedy follows closely on the heels of a devastating strike on the capital Kyiv just 3 days prior. That earlier barrage, which claimed 28 civilian lives and wounded 142, marked the deadliest attack on the capital this year, leaving a 9-story apartment building in ruins. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy visibly moved during his visit to the Kyiv site, described these actions as a stark reminder to the world that Russia chooses killing. He further condemned the recent barrages as tactics of deliberate terror against our people, demanding a robust international response that would significantly impact Russia as a whole and its ability to continue the war. Indeed, the scale of the recent assaults has been immense, with Russia reportedly launching over 440 drones and 32 missiles across Ukraine in what Zelenskyy termed one of the war's largest bombardments. Russia, for its part, claimed its forces had eliminated at least 61 Ukrainian drones aimed at targets within Russia, including Moscow, on the same day as the Odesa attack, while maintaining that its strikes target military industries, not residential quarters. This renewed escalation casts a long shadow over any prospects for peace. Despite Russian President Vladimir Putin's recent remarks on the sidelines of an economic forum in St. Petersburg, where he claimed readiness to find a solution and potentially meet with the Ukrainian president. His maximalist positions remain unchanged. Putin reiterated that any peace deal must address the root causes of the war, a phrase consistently used to challenge Ukraine's sovereignty and its right to choose its security partners or maintain a strong military. Such rhetoric offers little hope for substantive concessions, effectively undermining the basis for genuine dialogue. Previous direct peace talks held in Istanbul on May 16 and June 2 yielded only limited success, primarily facilitating agreements on prisoner swaps and the exchange of fallen soldiers' bodies. No progress has been made towards a ceasefire or a comprehensive peace deal. The humanitarian aspect, however, remains a persistent focus, with the latest in a series of prisoner exchanges on June 19 seeing sick or wounded individuals repatriated. Zelenskyy emphasized Ukraine's unwavering commitment to bringing every soldier home, noting that many have been held captive since 2022. Putin too alluded to the possibility of further talks on prisoner and body exchanges after June 22. However, the chasm between stated intentions and ground realities is vast. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha highlighted this disconnect, revealing that 100 days had passed since Kyiv unconditionally accepted a U.S. proposal for a 30-day extendable ceasefire put forth by former President Donald Trump. Sybiha lamented that instead of de-escalation, Russia had chosen to escalate terror against Ukraine. This rejection of a clear ceasefire pathway, coupled with the ongoing bombardments, reinforces the perception among Western allies that Moscow is not genuinely committed to ending the conflict. The international community has responded with extensive sanctions against Russia, while NATO has bolstered its forces on its eastern flank. Rights groups continue to document and allege major rights violations and war crimes committed by Russian forces, further isolating Moscow on the global stage. Adding another layer of geopolitical complexity, Zelenskyy has also accused Moscow of shielding Iran's nuclear ambitions, an assertion that, if true, suggests a wider strategic alignment, complicating global security dynamics. As the conflict grinds on, marked by relentless attacks on civilian infrastructure and entrenched diplomatic positions, the path to a lasting peace appears increasingly fraught. The latest casualties in Odesa serve as a stark reminder of the human cost of this protracted struggle. Without a fundamental shift in rhetoric and action from all parties, particularly Russia's willingness to genuinely engage in negotiations without preconditions that undermine Ukraine's sovereignty, the cycle of violence is tragically set to continue, leaving a trail of destruction and suffering in its wake.